When we think of the Vietnam War, images of jungles, guerrilla warfare, and an unpopular war come to mind. For many Americans, it's a war they thought they knew but actually didn't. There are so many untold stories from that war, and in this video, I will be covering 3 of them. In 1963, the U.S. began its involvement in the Vietnam War, which would last for 10 years and end with the fall of Saigon in 1975. But why were American troops there in the first place? In order to answer that question, we have to take a look at the history of Vietnam itself. Vietnam is located in the Indo-Chinese peninsula between China, Lhasa, and Cambodia. Vietnam was once a part of French colonial holdings and was known as French Indochina until 1954, when the Geneva Accords divided the country into North Vietnam and South Vietnam. The division was meant to be temporary, but it soon became permanent. North Vietnam was supported by its communist allies, the Soviet Union and China, while South Vietnam was backed by the United States and other anti-communist allies. The conflict between these two sides quickly escalated into open warfare, and by 1959, the U.S. had committed over 20,000 military personnel to South Vietnam. The following year, President John F. Kennedy approved the use of U.S. combat troops, and within 3 years, 500,000 American soldiers had been deployed to the region. One of the main reasons the U.S. was involved in the conflict was to contain the spread of communism. This was a policy known as containment, which was developed during the Cold War and aimed to stop the spread of communism to other countries. The U.S. believed that if Vietnam fell to communism, then other countries in Southeast Asia would follow. Additionally, the U.S. wanted to maintain its position as a world power and prevent China and the Soviet Union from gaining influence in the region. And finally, the U.S. wanted to support an ally. South Vietnam was seen as a key ally in the region, and the U.S. felt that it had an obligation to help them resist the communist-led North Vietnamese. But as the war dragged on and the U.S. suffered heavy casualties, many began to question the purpose of their involvement. Some argued that the U.S. should pull out of Vietnam altogether, while others called for a more aggressive approach to end the conflict quickly. However, despite growing public opposition to the war, the U.S. remained committed to fighting until 1973, when peace talks were finally successful. Over the course of the war, millions of Vietnamese and over 58,000 Americans lost their lives. The cost of the war in terms of both human life and financial resources was enormous. But ultimately, the U.S. was unable to achieve its goals, and Vietnam was unified under communist rule. The legacy of the Vietnam War continues to be debated today, with some arguing that the U.S. made a positive impact on the region and others claiming the opposite. Regardless of one's perspective, the Vietnam War was a defining moment of the 20th century and had a profound impact on the world as a whole. Now that you know why the war was happening, let's dive into some of the most untold stories from the war. During the Vietnam War, there was one group of people who played a vital role in the conflict, but whose contributions are often overlooked: the Vietnamese civilians. Their experiences during the war were often devastating, caught between the opposing forces. They suffered immense hardships, including displacement, death, and destruction of their homes and livelihoods. But despite these challenges, they found ways to resist and adapt, displaying remarkable resilience and courage. One example of their resistance was through acts of sabotage against the occupying forces, such as providing intelligence to the Viet Cong or sabotaging their infrastructure. They also formed self-defense groups to protect their communities from attacks. Moreover, they developed strategies to evade detection and survive in the harsh conditions, such as hiding food or using underground tunnels. Perhaps most significantly, Vietnamese civilians actively participated in the Viet Cong movement, serving as soldiers, nurses, or supplying food and resources. By resisting the war in their own unique ways, Vietnamese civilians demonstrated their unwavering commitment to their homeland and their desire for freedom and independence. While the Vietnamese civilians played a huge role in the war, so did another group, the indigenous people of the area. These people are often forgotten in history books, but their contributions to the Vietnam War are undeniable. Indigenous people from various ethnic groups like the Hmong, Dao, and Muong joined the U.S. military as interpreters, guides, and scouts. They possessed invaluable knowledge of the terrain and the jungle, which helped the U.S. troops navigate difficult landscapes and find hidden enemy positions. Their understanding of local languages allowed them to communicate with villagers and gather intelligence about the enemy. Additionally, some indigenous individuals served as snipers, utilizing their skills to take down enemy combatants from long distances. By leveraging the expertise and insights of indigenous people, the U.S. military was able to carry out its operations more effectively. Unfortunately, after the war, many indigenous people faced discrimination and marginalization as their wartime contributions were not fully recognized or appreciated. Another untold story from the war involves the role of women. Women's roles in the Vietnam War were diverse and significant, challenging traditional gender norms and expectations. On the home front, Vietnamese women played a crucial role in supporting the war effort. They worked as nurses, doctors, and medics, providing essential medical services to wounded soldiers. They also participated in community organizations, producing goods and resources for the military, and contributing to the economy. Despite facing numerous challenges, including displacement and the loss of loved ones, Vietnamese women demonstrated remarkable resilience and determination in their support for the war effort. Similarly, American women also made substantial contributions to the war effort, both at home and in Vietnam. They served in various capacities, including as nurses, clerks, and intelligence analysts. Many women also actively participated in anti-war protests, advocating for peace and calling for an end to the conflict. Overall, women's participation in the Vietnam War highlights their crucial role in shaping the course of the conflict and challenging traditional gender roles. It is important to remember that behind every war are real people with real experiences. The Vietnam War was a complex and controversial conflict that had a profound impact on all who were involved. From the indigenous people to the women who played crucial roles, their stories deserve to be heard and remembered. By learning about their experiences, we can gain a deeper understanding of the human cost of war and the importance of recognizing the contributions of all those involved. We must ensure that their sacrifices and contributions are not forgotten but are instead honored and remembered. By understanding their perspectives, we can gain a more complete picture of this pivotal moment in history and pay tribute to the resilience and strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. If you liked this video, check out my other videos about the Vietnam War. Thanks for watching.